Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, we are doing Chapter 35 of Stepping Wild. Tibs formed another etching of purity and applied it to yet another of the injuries it gained during the run. He so missed the near-instant full-body healing and suffusing gave him. That was stupid, Mirka snapped. Not the first time I've been told that. The etching sped things up, but one only dealt with an injury and the surrounding area before running out. Some were also spent on part that didn't need healing. Some essence was also spent on part that didn't need healing. He'd yet to work out how the arcanous arrangement that caused an etching to only focus on the damage. That meant he needed to judge which of the injury needed to be healed first, and that wasn't always as obvious as what leaked more essence. His essence mixing within his body could lead to damage of its own that could exhaust him if it went too long. There had been a few close calls where he'd almost fallen unconscious before finding the right one to heal. Is the last time going to be because you don't listen and it kills you? Don't you want me dead? The chuckle broke his concentration, and he had to rebuild the etching. I want to be the one to do it, not some trap you're too injured to notice. You're always on me to think, were you? When you threw yourself into my fireball? I've been burned worse. They snorted. I believe that. I can see that if what's in the chest is good enough, you'll walk through fire until you're ash trying to get it. He focused on healing himself. He was feeling the strain of so many etching, but he thought it was only tiredness. He couldn't sense any place inside him where the essence might mix. You barely made it out. Mirka sounded reproachful. But I did. It's what counts. The traps The trap they'd referred to was because Tibs had forgotten Furman had changed the triggers on that first corridor. He'd moved out of the way in time, not to be skewered by the wall of spears, but not fast enough to keep his arm from being opened up badly enough. He'd trailed blood the rest of the way and had to heal that as soon as he'd step out, instead of waiting to reach his camp. How did you ever survive your runs? Mirka demanded, disgusted. I'm clever. The smartness of the tone immediately vanished. I had a great team. You don't have one now, they snapped. How about you stop being clever and start being smart? How about you let me focus on my healing so I can sleep? Do a good job. I want you at your best when I kill you. The stiffness was an imagination. The healing had taken far longer than he'd anticipated, ruining his plan for another run before returning to the village. But there was no damage left, so he shouldn't feel as he did. He rolled his shoulder under the deer carcass. As the village gate came into view. Maybe Mirka's statement had merit. He needed to be smarter about the runs. Jumping through the fire had seemed like his best play, even knowing how much damage it could do. But had it been? With Mirka getting better, he had to put more thought into his strategies. The guard eyed him warily, and he felt the eyes on him the entire way to the tavern. I can't do anything with this, the leathersmith said. Why didn't you at least skin it? Get one of the hunters to do it. He barely kept from snapping. My hunts didn't go well, and I was lucky to come across this one as I came back. I Couldn't take the time with the harvest almost here. Hunter's going to ask for payment, so I won't have much left to make you clothing out of. He almost told her he didn't care about any clothing. Maybe he was tired enough to justify it, but she might still be suspicious. No one let their work go unpaid. He put minimum effort into haggling himself a pair of pants made of the scrap hides. Why Mother Natrell ordered him to be present for the harvest, Tibs couldn't understand. As far as he could tell, the entire village was in the field, which that this was to punish him, he decided, as he followed Joman's instruction in tying and standing the bundle of wheat for them to be collected once the cutting was done. It was the work most did, with only a few trusted with the sickles. Even with everyone helping, it was better part of 2 weeks before all the farms were harvested. He fell onto his cot each night exhausted. Other than not having to heal himself when they were done, this took as much out of him as the runs. Cheers ran through the tavern in spite of the rain, or maybe because of it. They'd beaten it to storing. They'd beaten it in storing the wheat to the barn. They were soaked from the run to the tavern afterward, but that didn't matter. The wheat was dry, ale flowed, and songs were sung off key. Harvesting ones, as best Tibs could tell. As amusing as this was, Tibs was planning ahead. The wheat grain still had to be separated from the shaft, and there would be more after that, beyond storing it, but he hoped to be back in the forest before that. The tankard was placed before him. Good time, isn't it? The man said, sitting across from Tibs. He was one of the villagers' hunter, one of those who'd kept their distances, always eyed him suspiciously. He was among the older ones, and while they hadn't spoken before, Tibs had gotten the sense from overheard conversations that this man held strong resentment against the mysterious creature of the forest. Tibs shrugged. Isn't any harvest that goes without problem worth the celebration? He couldn't remember them seeing the men in the fields, but they had been spread far. He considered the tankard. The content was far stronger than ale, but more importantly, accepting it meant he agreed to what had brought the men to his table. He removed the corruption from it, as well as the wood elements he could now sense would also cause intoxication. He still sipped it cautiously. There were other essences there he couldn't identify. It's not that complicated. The man said casually, cut it down, stack it, store it. It's not like hunting. That's skilled work. Tib shrugged. If there was tension between the farmers and hunters, he wanted no parts of it. You seem comfortable in the forest. The man eyed him over his tankard, and Tibs doubted he imagined the suspicion in the look. I know what I'm capable of. I stay away from the animals that will kill me and exercise patience in hunting those I'll kill. I find that's enough. But you've got to know where they are to avoid them, don't you? The man smiled. Nowhere safe to hunt, he thought. He pulled a rolled hide out from out of sight and unrolled it on the table. The villager was a rough representation in the center, as were the farms. Ground farms from sunrise to nadir around it. The fields looked too large to be a proper representation from what Tibs remembered of working them. The man's expression turned sly. Why don't you share that with the rest of us? There were the other hunters. Where were the other hunters, if this was for all of them? If he marked the safe place, those left would be the unsafe one, the places to look for that creature which had taken some of them. He was tempted to give the man what he wanted. It wasn't Tibbs's responsibility if the men purposely went looking to die. But while not a hunter, not a, sorry, while but while not a runner, A hunter was better equipped than most to survive Fearman's first floor, to return with stories and start the cycle of runs that ended with the guild learning of the dungeon's existence. But if he marks Fearman's location as one of the saved one, he ran the risk of people going there, and too many would die before the guild found out. Far too many after that. You have charcoal? The man eagerly handed Tibs a sharpened stick. He marked areas on the map, starting Sunrise Ward above the road and moving Zenith, then Sunset, Nadir, and returning Sunrise. Except for three, they were where he sensed and found large predators. He tapped the one of those where he'd written boar. That's for bear. He doubted the man knew his letters, but the arcanist made for an easy to identify symbol. Made for easy to identify symbols. That's for the wildcats. He tapped cobb, the wolf pack, more. I don't know how large the animals make their territory there. There were other symbols there, but he figured the man had gotten the point. And I'm adding that mainly because there's a lot more dangerous animals than those three. And I'm not going through the list. The man frowned. But where is it safe to go? Tip shrugged. Anywhere that's not close to their territories? He motioned to where there were large gaps between areas. He made sure none of those were near Furman. I didn't come across signs of large predators in those places. If you want something closer, you can work with the other hunters to remove one of them. Those are just animals. The animal said under his breath. It's what I saw while hunting or exploring for better hunting spots. He looked at Tibs and it kept his voice low. But where is it? You mean the monster you're all afraid of? He shrugged. I didn't see anything I'd think of as a monster. German saw it, the man snarled. Then you take him to the forest and he no longer cares about that. Tip sighed. All I did was tell him what obsession cost me. He hoped he wasn't exchanging this man for no longer having to worry about Joman. I reminded him he has a woman, friends, and a life here. Although there was a maliciousness in the man's eye that made Tibbs less concerned with what he might be forced to do. He's the one who decided that was more important. Where did you find him? He studied the map for a little time. For the little time it took him to make his decision, he tapped a spot halfway between the village and the dungeon, close to one of the bear he'd invented. Around there, best I can recall. The man studied the map. You were gone most of the day. Actually, he came back the next morning? No. Yeah, most of the day. Tone was filled with accusation. I'm not the tracker you think I am, he replied defensively. There's a lot of terrain and a lot of tracks to work out which one were his. Even once I had that, I lost it a few times. It was distressing the man's eyes, and Tibbs didn't care. He might warn Furman about the man, maybe convince him to make his traps deadlier if he sensed someone else approaching, but he'd wait to see what this hunter did when Tibbs headed into the forest next. And that concludes chapter 35 of Stepping Wild. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter will be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this story, it is up for free on Royal Road. If you want to support me and read ahead of that, it's on Ream's story. We're about a dozen chapters. And if you are looking to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.